Okay, so today's story is number 33. The mountain of desire grows ever higher, bigger, 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 until bam, the balloon breaks. If only you had stopped sooner when it was still small. Let yourself run wild and you explode, end up with zero. This is desire. A celebrity who prided himself on his millions lost everything when the economy tanked. He sold his mansion and his fancy car and now lives under a heavy burden of debt. The mountain of desire grows ever higher. Like a short poem in Japanese, I think it's translated. And tanked means went down rapidly or dramatically. Okay, let's read it one more time. The mountain of desire grows ever higher, bigger, 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 until bam, the balloon breaks. If only you had stopped sooner, when it was still small. Let yourself run wild and you explode, end up with zero. This is desire. A celebrity who prided himself on his millions lost everything when the economy went down. He sold his mansion and his fancy car and now lives under a heavy burden of debt. The mountain of desire grows ever higher. Very good. So, yeah, like we always share with you about how Buddhism has two aspects, the compassion aspect and the wisdom aspect. Of course, you can feel the compassion in this passage too, because if you don't care about someone, you just let them make their own mistakes and fail and learn through their own experiences. Um, of course, sometimes we have to do that because the person is not open to any advice or wisdom, so we cannot share our wisdom. But in Buddhism, yeah, so today's story is more like the emphasis is on the wisdom side than we see maybe the compassion. And the wisdom is the faculty of seeing ahead. So for us, because we are made of desires, like Buddha teaches, we have desire for food, for money and material things, for recognition or acknowledgement, and for relationships and sleep and leisure. So these five desires make up who we are. So we are constantly manipulated by these desires to do this, to do that. So if we have no awareness of these desires, we just get carried away and bigger, bigger, bigger. We want more and more and more. And however, there is something called sustainability. They talk a lot about that for the environment too. Actually, I love this word very much. We need to sustain things. That means we need to think about the input versus the output. Like, for our desires, if we want a bigger house, do we have the bigger income to pay the mortgage? If not, do we want to, put ourselves in such a trap? So kind of thinking about the cause and effect relationship, that if I do this, what will happen next? And what happens is once we get a taste of fulfillment of these desires, like people, for example, who invest in the stock market, if they win some money, their money expands a little bit, it feels good. Yeah, you feel like a winner, you feel like your strategy worked, and that's what gets us hooked on it. We want more of that good feeling. So people invest more and more and more, and sometimes it's risky. They need to stop at that point, but it's very difficult to stop sooner when it's still the damage is small. So they let themselves run wild, and then explosion happens, and then they end up with zero. This is desire. So Buddha teaches desires are dreadful, and many of us, we struggle to understand that because desires also make us feel life is worth living. It's the sweetness of life, it's the honey of life. Yeah, so we need to know the precarious nature of desires and go forward mindfully, cautiously, step by step. And so we avoid unnecessary suffering, knowing that this desire just grows higher and higher. And people who don't have this wisdom, because everyone around them believes that actually desires are to be fulfilled boundlessly. So with that kind of attitude, then people pride themselves on millions that they gain, and unfortunately, there are many examples when they lose it all, and they have to live under a heavy burden of debt. It could be financial debt or also psychological debt when they always ruminate and think about where did it all go, what happened, how did I get here, and so that it creates their suffering. So all we have to do is, in Buddhism, we acknowledge the nature of these desires, which is bottomless. We acknowledge that, so it's easier to draw our boundaries and know the middle way, how much is enough. And by engaging in the antidote of desires, which is giving to other people, to show concern about the sufferings of other people and helping them to fulfill some of their desires. By doing that, our own desires become kind of like milder or more in check. And ultimately, this process becomes effortless, and whatever caused us suffering becomes the source of gratitude and joy. Just like today's phrase that they said, it's easy to be happy, sorry, it's easy to be happy under favorable conditions. But if you're happy in adversity, that's the real deal, and that's the sign of true happiness. Yeah. In adversity or when bad things happen, to be able to have that transformed into gratitude and joy, that's the game changer. And that's what we are moving forward together. So good job, everyone. Oh, today is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day. And yeah, let's savor the gratitude we have to our parents, whether they're here or not, and cultivate gratitude even more deeply. Yeah. Take care and have a wonderful Sunday. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.